first episode of Spilling Ink. This will be our weekly indie author talk show, just to introduce new authors, talk about what's going on in the publishing industry, and have a little bit of fun. So today I've got my co-host David with me. He's the author of The Rainblade, a sword and sorcery type fantasy novel. Is that going to be a series, David, or is that just a standalone?
Standalone. But it is, I am working on the audiobook right now.
Awesome. And then my guests today are going to be Kindra, how do you say it? Is it Sowder?
Sowder. Yeah.
I have the same problem. Solitis is my last name, and nobody can say it right. So
I'm from Southern California, so I say Solitis.
Yeah, and I gotta remind people it's not Spanish, it's Greek, so it's the long I. But anyways, so Kindra writes a blend of different genres: horror, fantasy, paranormal, kind of a little bit of everything. And then we've got Jason as well, who writes in the fantasy realm more towards the horror side, right?
Anything creepy and dark is kind of where I like to be.
All right. Well, let's let you guys talk about your books for just a minute so that everyone can get to know you. Jason, I'll let you go ahead and go first.
The books that I've written, I actually brought them up here so that I could show you. I've got The Cold Room, which is my first one. It's kind of like a scary ghost story. Horror, not too scary. Most people can handle it, but still a lot of fun. Then my second one was Delia. And Delia is more of a thriller and a drama and kind of about love and hate and all sorts of strange things mixed together. It takes place in World War II. I really, really enjoy historical fiction, so I wanted to do something with a little bit of history to it. So I tried to stay true to as many historical facts as I can without being too nerdy about it. And then series I've started called The Dark Evolution. I've got Pathosis, scary spiders, not too scary though, I promise. Katie loves spiders.
Totally.
And then Deranged, which is the sequel to that. I pretty much write horror, action, thrillers, I don't know, a little bit of suspense, anything that'll give you goosebumps and maybe make you stay up a little bit too late at night. But yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, when I read Pathosis, my skin was crawling, just so you know.
Good, that's what I want.
Exactly
what I want.
Go ahead and give us a little bit about your books, too.
All right, well, I don't have them with me because I just sold a bunch of them at a convention the other weekend. But
Congratulations.
Thank you. I have the Executioner Trilogy, which is, I describe it as a mixture of Supernatural and Buffy, like they got together and had a baby, which is dark fantasy. I've got Miss Hyde novellas, which is your horror, except it's erotic horror, which is a really small niche. So I managed to get myself into that. And then I also have the Permutation Archive, which is a dystopian science fiction with a little bit of, the supernatural thrown in there, just for good measure.
Nice, well-rounded mix there. They sound like some interesting stories. I definitely have to pick up yours and take a look at them.
Oh, I would love for you.
Absolutely, definitely. It's on my list now. I like the new cover that you've been showing. I think that's for the Permutated series with the lady in red, and it's like destroying, I don't know, it's almost like pixelated behind her.
It is. That is a beautiful cover. Aurelia Frey did that one. She runs Pretty AF Design, but she did that one for PHCD Publishing. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. All right. Well, so now we know each other. We're all acquainted, right? We're all good friends.
We don't really know anything about Katie.
I've got the Immortalis series, which is my urban fantasy, a little grittier take on what it's like to become a vampire and be introduced to the supernatural world. That one kind of split off into a werewolf series, the Moonlight series, which I've got one book out on right now, and I'll be working on another one shortly. Then I've got my dystopian and paranormal mashup, the Chronicles of the Uprising. That's a 6-book series that takes place about 200 years into an alternate future after the destruction of Earth, where humans are in charge and supernatural creatures are their slaves. My latest work is the Little Werewolf series, which is my young adult werewolf coming of age story. And I'm working on book 3 on that one right now.
Just so you guys know, Katie is a workaholic, man. Like, I follow her progress on Facebook, and she's just always talking about like, oh, I did 1,000 words today. Oh, I did 1,500 words today. I'm just sitting there like, how? Like every
She
day.
sounds a lot like me, because I do the same thing.
Jeez.
You've got to set goals for yourself. The writing process is probably the hardest part of it. Editing is annoying, revisions are annoying, but if you don't sit down and get the story done, there's nothing to work with. So you have to kind of have a little bit of discipline, and you have to set a goal. I like to try and get 500 words a day. If I can, great. If not, oh well. But if I get 1,000 words a day, I'm really happy.
Yeah, your work ethic has been very inspiring to me. Me and Katie, we met at Las Vegas. We did the Wizard World show separately, but then we hooked up, and we've been friends since. And so she's been really awesome just to watch her her progress and stuff like that. It's been very inspiring and very impressive to me.
Aw, thank you.
Yeah.
There are a lot of authors out there who just work their butts off even harder than me too. So, I'm inspired by seeing some of them. Like Alexia. I don't know. I know Jason knows Alexia. She's a workaholic too.
Alexia Purdy, right?
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, she's a local
And
Vegas and she's on it every single day.
she's got another one that's got a big catalog of books too.
Yeah. We'll be bringing Alexia with us, hopefully, fingers crossed, to Palm Springs Comic-Con next month. And it'll be me, Alexia, David, and Jenna Johnson.
And I would really like to see like a showdown between Alexia's vampires or vampire zombies and your vampires. Yeah,
From
that
Reign
would be
of
kind
Hope.
of fun.
That's a good
Yes.
series. Yeah, that's a great
Reign of
series.
Dissension.
We'll have to make that happen. We'll have to do some kind of a spoof book or something.
This is for all three of you. How long have each of you been writing and publishing your own work, and what got you started on it?
You go first, Katie.
Me? Why you guys keep pointing at me?
So you should go first.
Being the host of the show is I get to push everything on you guys.
That's true. Let's shove it. Let's shove it to Kindra and Jason.
That started for me back in 2014, the end of 2014. It was around October or so. I had been signed with a small press. Well, now they're more medium-sized press. They kind of changed their model and everything like that. So I decided, I had 4 books with them at the time. I had the Executioner Trilogy and the first Permutation Archives book with them. So after that, I just decided, you know what, I'm going to dissolve the contract and I'll do it on my own. Except I decided to start a publishing company on top of that. So I kind of used that to kind of push them out there at first. But from there, now we have about 1 million, I'm going to say about 1 million authors under us. But I've been writing since then. I've got the Executioner Trilogy and the Mid-Tide novellas, which are all under that umbrella. And then Permutation Archives, which is actually with Crushing Hearts and Black Butterfly Coalition. I don't know, it's not self, but so.
And that's all just in the last 2 years?
Yeah.
Holy crap.
I currently have 7 books out, including some stories in anthologies. Well, about 4 short stories in different anthologies, and I've got another book coming out in December, which is book 2 of the Permutation Archives, and then by the end of the year, I should have my first paranormal romance coming out too. So
That's an insane amount of work for a very short period of time. So very impressive, for sure.
I'm like Katie. I'm also a workaholic.
Yeah, you got to keep the words going because your readers are constantly inundated with a flood of new books every day. I mean, there's thousands of books published daily. And if you want to stay in front of your readers' eyes, you have to constantly churn out new work. And it's got to be quality work too, but you have to constantly put something new out to remind your readers, hey, I'm here. Hey, I'm continuing that storyline that you liked. And it takes a lot of dedication.
Speaking of storylines that people like, I really would like to see some more cool vampire gladiators.
Definitely. Justine will get her story. She will. I promise.
I'm just saying, it needs to happen.
You know, funny, I don't know if I told you or not, but Justine initially had been a character created to die.
Honestly, when I was reading it, I was thinking, okay, she's building this up just so that she can axe this character and make me really upset. So I have to say, by the time I finished the series, I was very happy with you. You did everything right. You didn't kill off all the Starks like Martin would have.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it was.
I was thinking about it though. I was thinking about it. Facebook, you see, I always tease about killing characters off.
It's interesting
Mhm.
because you have a lot of power when you're building your world. And so sometimes, your intentions with the character, like Katie, you said originally she was meant to die. Did it surprise you when she made it out alive? Like, as the writer, did you feel it out? Or did it just, how did it happen?
I actually struggled through the whole storyline because I knew that she was supposed to die. The entire time I had her marked for death. And the whole time I was writing, I was like, oh, I don't want to kill her. Oh, she's such a good character. She's got so much interest. I can't do it. And then at the very end, I found a way to save her.
Nice.
And I was like, that's it, I'm taking it. Because I just couldn't kill her. I loved her by that point.
And that's what happens sometimes, except for unless you're George R.R. Martin.
Yeah. My favorite meme is him with the gangster hat on, and it said, oh, you have a favorite character? Not anymore.
My favorite one is the Shrek one. The one with the king from Shrek. And he's like, some of you will live and some of you will die. And
Yeah,
whatever.
that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Yeah.
Jason, really quick, can I get you to chime in on that first question about, when did you really start pursuing being an author?
I have probably been writing for the shortest amount of time. I didn't publish my first book until I was 3, and that was 2013. All my life I had written, crummy little poems and songs and things like that, and it was always something fun I did, more of a catharsis, and it never really went anywhere until I met an indie author that lives here in Holland, a good friend of mine, Amber Yeager, and she talked to me about publishing and what she was doing and how it really changed her life and how she wanted to do things and how much happier she was. And I said, okay, I'll take this book that I've written 30 pages for over the last 15 years and actually try to finish it. And that's where I ended up getting the cold room. Yeah, scary cold room.
Oh, that's fantastic.
But yeah, and
that's really cool.
And since then, I've published a book every year, and I'm currently working on Myth, which is actually a follow-up to the cold room. But yeah, it was really a scary decision for me because going from something that was barely a hobby and more like something I could do, once a week. And I didn't even want to tell my wife about it because I was afraid that if I told other people I was trying to write a story, it was going to somehow kill the idea in my mind or jinx it or something like that, take away the creativity. And so going from not even knowing what on earth I was doing to actually finally having a finished book, I think really changed everything. And once that first book was written, was when it was like, okay, this will become a lot more attainable and doable to me. And I just want to point out that without an Ameripug, none of us would be able to do what we're doing. I mean, he's really the savior of the day. So yeah, that's kind of how I got started doing what I'm doing.
I see you always posting pictures about your pugs and talking about them, and they're adorable.
My son Christopher always wanted a pug as a pet. This is actually Christopher right there. And he said that he wanted to name the pug Dragon so that we could have a dragon-guarded castle. And after we got her with her little smushed face, we really couldn't say no to more, and so we just started rescuing more pugs, and yeah, now we have a house full of animals. So
Jason, you turned a lot of your books into audiobooks already, right?
Yes.
Okay, so
yes.
Now you did that through ACX, which is Amazon's Audiobook Creation Exchange.
That's correct. Yep.
So
yeah, the audiobooks that was another thing where I'm so new to being an indie author that I had no idea what to do. And actually it was a friend of, I think, a couple of us, Alexia Purdy, who was promoting an audiobook, and finally I just said, hey, what are you doing? How do you do this? How do you go about getting a producer and a narrator? And she's the one that, taught me how to use ACX and how to search for a good producer. And I really like it. Audiobooks aren't for everyone, but for the people that enjoy listening to them, they're a really good thing to have. And Amazon has given us a platform in their sister company, ACX, that we can create these audiobooks at little to no cost to us. That as an author, it's a little scary, but also awesome hearing someone else speak the words that you've written. So it's really a fun thing, and it's just another platform to open up to our readers.
Absolutely, and there's so many people who are just too busy sometimes to sit down and read a book. So more often than not, I hear people talking about audiobooks these days. Kindra, have you done any audiobooks yet?
Yeah, I currently have the first book of the Executioner Trilogy on audiobook. The second one is in production. I actually got Sophie Amos to do these ones. And the first Miss Hyde book it went live a couple of weeks ago. The narrator already has the first 15 minutes of the next one to me. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it's been great. The process is really easy. They've managed to make it extremely easy for people who don't normally do it. And for me, it's a huge learning curve, especially with a publishing company on top of it. So now we're getting all of our other books into audiobook too. So
Now, let me stop you guys and ask this, because we're all using ACX in some different forms. How many of us have used royalty share, and how many of us have gone through and offered the per hour price to a producer?
Yeah, for all of mine, I have used the royalty share program. My second book, Delia, for however ACX figures it out, qualified for their stipend program, which is just an added incentive that ACX gives to the producers, where in addition to the royalty share, they'll give the producer another $100 per finished hour. If you qualify for the stipend program, or if you're adding additional cash into the pot, you're going to get a lot more producers that are interested in you. And it seems kind of obvious because there's more money on the table, but it can also be tougher to wade through people, because you know that you've got a lot of people that are looking to cash in on that stipend program. So I almost prefer just the straight royalty share, because then you're getting people that are truly interested in reading that body of work and maybe a little bit more passionate about what they're doing. But that could be just my experience. The producer that I had for my stipend book, Delia, was fantastic, and I absolutely loved her performance. So I've had really good luck with the royalty share thus far, at least.
Okay. Kendra?
we've used the royalty share program. We find it's just a lot easier because then they get paid automatically. And we're small, so we don't have, a lot of money to throw around. So we just use the royalty share program. So far, it's been great. We've gotten a very good quality of work. I know the first person I approached about doing the Executioner Trilogy would only do it if we did the stipend program. So I had to kind of pass on that one, but I got Sophie, who was great, and she's doing the royalty share program, and she absolutely loves it. So it kind of worked out in our favor.
Okay. And David, how did you do yours?
I sent out a casting notice with an offer of between $200 and $400 per finished hour. And then I actually haven't revealed my narrator yet, but it's Joel Frumpkin, and he is just like, he's amazing. Just wait, like he's awesome. But yeah, so I did that, and I had a lot of people audition. I was very surprised by how many people were interested in the book. So I had about 30 auditions, and then my wife and I, we went through every single one of them, and we picked like a top 5, and then we were just sort of mulling it over for like weeks and weeks, and then finally we were like, okay, it's Joel, because every time that we were like, comparing, we were like comparing it to Joel. So we were like, he almost sounds like Joel. Oh wait, we should just go with Joel.
Now that actually opens up the floor to another question too. Spouses. How do our spouses, react to the demands of living with a writer? Because I know a lot of us spend so many hours just glued to the screen and kind of neglecting other things.
Well, you got to have date nights. You got to have time set aside.
Wait, what's a date night? Hold on. I haven't had one since, my son was born.
Oh, man. You guys are overdue.
I never get out. For me, I work opposite my husband, too. He works nights, so he sleeps during the day. I'm mom during the day, and when the kids go to bed, I'm writer, and he's at work. So we we pass each other every day and say hi.
What about you guys?
My husband seems to be, I don't know, he's really supportive. We do set aside our date nights and we go to dinner and maybe see a movie. We went and saw Independence Day Resurgence when that came out. He doesn't seem to mind it. And plus, I sit in the living room in the recliner with my feet propped up so he can see me. He seems to be okay with that. It is demanding. It is taxing. I know I don't get to clean as much as I would like to. So sometimes our house is a little bit of a mess. So he gets to pick up a lot of the slack because I'm always glued to the computer. And it's not just because of my books, it's because of all of our authors too and meeting those demands.
So it's kind of like a working relationship, though.
Yeah, and we're trying really hard for it not to become platonic. So we do work really hard at it. I will say that.
Well, my spouse handles it pretty awesome. When I'm in writing mode, I usually trying to write between 1,000 and 2,000 words a day. I attempt to do that earlier in the day while the kids are at school. And usually Heather, my wife, is at her photography studio and she's working. So I try to knock out as much of it as I can while the house is empty. I think that the most challenging time for her is when I'm in editing mode, when I'm proofreading and trying to get a final draft ready, or if I'm trying to listen to a completed audiobook to go through and give notes to my narrator. And I think that's the tougher time because, I'm kind of spending all day and all evening at the computer, and even though I'm there in the room, I'm kind of blocking everyone else out, and I think that's kind of frustrating for everybody in the family. But for the most part, it's really a pretty awesome job being a writer because you can do it when you want to. You do have to take a little bit of the muse into consideration because you're not always being struck with your great ideas, but a lot of it comes down to what Katie said earlier about really having to put in the time and the discipline to sit down and write those words because otherwise it's not going to get done. But yeah, my wife has been awesome. About a year and a half ago, we made the decision that I was actually going to stay home and be Mr. Mom and Mr. Taxi for the kids in school and write. And she would continue on with our photography business. It's really been fantastic, and I can't complain about it. I get frustrated with my writing at times and want to beat my head into the counter, but that's no different than any other job. It's just now you're actually creating something for you, and I think that's a pretty special thing.
That's great. I love that arrangement. It's both of you guys are doing creative work, and it sounds like you got it figured out. Sometimes for me, it's like it's frustrating because you really do have to champion your work. You have to be the one to, keep it rolling. Like some days you're just like, F this, I can't do anything. But again, if you aren't championing your own work, it's like no one is going to.
That's very true. I think, I guess I'm the oddball out when it comes to the whole spouse's relationship with writing because we don't really see each other all that much. We do like sit next to each other, like you can see his chair in the background here. So on his days off, he's playing video games next to me while I'm writing. So I guess that kind of counts as quality time.
You can write it with him right there in the room with you?
He's got one game, and I don't know what it is right now, and it's got just an obnoxious like soundtrack, I guess, of characters that scream just random things. And as I'm writing, I hear things like die, die, die. And I'm like, what the hell?
Oh, that's got to be Overwatch.
That's Overwatch.
Yes.
My husband will turn on movies that I want to see while I'm writing. So I'm like, what are you doing? I want to see that movie too. Well, put your stuff down and watch it. I can't.
I don't know if you can see it or not.
Looks like a giant calculator.
It's like a giant keyboard with a very, very small screen. And
the elf is smart.
This is awesome. I can take this anywhere and just word spew straight onto it. And I get a lot of writing done because there's no distractions. There's no internet. There's no TV or whatever. I just take it somewhere, type away, and then plug it into my computer. You open up Word and you plug it in and you hit send and it like types it out on the screen for you. It's great.
Ooh.
So
I
I
need
can
one.
step away from the computer now and I can pound out about 1,000 words with no problem and no distractions. That's the big thing, no distractions.
Especially Facebook. That's what I'm bad about is Facebook.
Yeah.
It's almost impulsive now to check it, and it's like, what am I even looking for?
I get distracted by Wikipedia a lot.
Wikipedia. That's the first time I've ever
I'll
heard.
find myself. I'll read one Wikipedia article, and there'll be a link to another one, and sooner or later, I'm not reading anything that's related to what I'm writing whatsoever. But you're right. It's just a distraction. That Alpha Smart keyboard is a great idea. They actually made a brand new one. I think it's called the Hemming Right or the Smart Right or something like that. But it's super expensive. They're
It
so
was $30.
cheap.
It was like on eBay.
Tell us, how did you jump into being a writer? What made you take the plunge into actually pursuing it professionally?
It was
You
kind
were
of
writing in your family, don't you?
I do. My older sister, she actually just got a contract for her middle grade book. She writes young adult and middle grade. I've got another sister who's into a video production. She's a travel blogger. I mean, my whole family kind of does little creative things. I really started writing when my daughter was born. My oldest daughter was born. But I hadn't had any inclination to really publish it or do anything with it. I had sent out some queries and whatnot and hadn't gotten any feedback. And I'd actually gotten laid off in 2009. During that time that I was laid off from my job, somebody had said, why don't you just self-publish? I mean, you've got the material out. You've been working it for years. Just do it. And so I did. I took the plunge. And that's when I published the first Immortalis book. And then every year since then, I've published at least 3 books.
You're kind of like my mentor, but I'm like super jealous right now.
Don't be jealous of me. There are so many more authors to be jealous of.
That's only because she's so much older than you.
Oh, you'll pay for that one.
I'm not stepping between you guys. You
When
have it
you're as
out.
old as Katie, you're a mentor to a lot of people.
Hey, just remember, Justine's life is in my hands.
Better watch it.
Well, then that brings up the topic of killing characters, too. How many of us like to kill characters off?
I love it.
No. Leave Justine alone. Kindra, I was curious. How old are you?
28.
He's just bad. You're not supposed to ask a lady's age.
Kindra, you're still young compared to me because I'm 36, so.
Old man.
Well, even my husband would say that you're young compared to him because he's 42.
Nice.
All right, now we got to.
What about you, David? You look young.
I'm 29. I'm gonna be 30 in September.
What? No way.
Yeah.
The big 3-0.
Yeah, 1986, man.
You're going to be 30?
Yeah, I'm gonna be 30.
You do not look like you were almost.
I had you picked for like 22 or 23.
Oh,
So did
thank
I.
you.
You got those
86.
boyish good looks.
Thank you. You're not a bad-looking bunch yourselves.
Hey, since we've all talked about, how we started in it, David, you haven't had a chance to give us the rundown on the Rainblade. How did that come about?
The Rainblade is actually the second book that I wrote. It's the first that I finished completely. So what I did was I studied animation in college. Through that, I started writing short stories, short projects with groups and stuff like that. One of the projects that came about through that was Onyx the Half-Hero Dragon. And so I took Onyx, which was a short cartoon, and it sort of evolved. I like your spyglass there.
You're black. He's all black.
It evolved from that short cartoon.
I was just trying to see you, man.
Nice. To a video game, and then it turned into a graphic novel, but I wasn't making any headway. So then I just started writing in a notebook, and then before I knew it, I just had pages and pages of chapters, and I was like, okay, this is what it wants to be. So Onyx, it's now in its editing stages, but I'm a terrible procrastinator. So I had this idea for this other story, and I pursued it for the next 3.5 years, and that was the Rainblade. And so now, nice, you got a pug tattoo. And so now I'm going back to Onyx to finish it. The Rainblade was essentially a procrastination project that turned into something that really mattered to me, and that's how it came about.
Now, do you have any other projects in
Oh,
the
that's
works
awesome.
right now? What's next on your plate?
I'm developing a board game, actually.
A board game?
Yeah, it's going to be really cool. I don't want to talk about it too much here because all the details are super secret. I'm working on producing the Rainblade as an audiobook. I'm going back to Onyx and editing that, and I'm going to try and get that done as soon as possible.
Since David opened up the topic of games and whatnot, let's talk about conventions. I know I met David at a Comic-Con style convention. I know Kindra's been going to conventions. What do you see as far as, that as a live event to meet and interact with readers?
At this point, I've been able to do a few cons. There are some that have been great for exposure, some not so much. One that we did in Virginia was really small. It was called Paracon. Now, I know there's a big Paracon, but this is like a little teeny tiny little at the Exchange Hotel Museum in Virginia. And it was really small. It was geared toward more of the paranormal, like ghost hunting groups, things like that. So I only sold like 2 books, unfortunately. Then we had MonsterCon last year, which was here in Daphne, South Carolina. That one was pretty good. I got to meet Santiago Cirillo, who was in season 4 of The Walking Dead. We got to meet a few more of the walkers when we did that one. And then we did XCon in Myrtle Beach in South Carolina.
Have you done specifically book events to compare and contrast to the Comic-Con style events?
I have not. I've been trying to get a signing with some indie bookstores around here lately, and they don't really cater a lot to the writers where I'm at. And even Barnes & Noble now, with them opening up to so many indie authors, it's been like a month and a half since I emailed them and even sent a follow-up email just to make sure they got that email and nothing.
It's rough to get into signing events, that are specifically like book events. A lot of the bookstores I've noticed don't really like to do like independent events. Barnes & Noble does do specific timed events, like during the beginning of the summer, they did the B-Teen Fest, which was geared towards specifically young adult books, young adult readers, and the people that they brought in had to be panelists and had to talk about the process and participate in like their writing craft shops and things like that. And that was just very rare too, to get in on one of those. How about Jason? Have you done any?
No, I haven't done any kind of conventions at all, actually. I'm still kind of a newbie to all of this. I've only been publishing for a few years, so I'm still trying to find out what the best way to go where is.
I've done some conventions because I'm a graphic designer as well, and I worked on a board game called Caperi. And so what I would normally do is booth both. I would booth the game and also sort of split the table and booth my work. It's a great way to meet people, but with that dual booth, it sort of detracts from a little bit of both, because I'm like, oh, hey, check out this board game. And then they're like, oh, what's this book? I'm like, oh, here, check out my book. Or vice versa. I'm like talking about my book, about the Rainblade, and they're like, oh, wait, what's this board game? My biggest success has been solo boothing at a convention. And that's actually the one that I met you at, Katie. It was Wizard World Las Vegas. And I was boothing by myself, although I think I should do the Artist Alley as opposed to the regular booth. And I sold 20 copies of the Rainblade there, but I met a ton of people. And I did an event at Vroman's in Pasadena. I had to read part of the book. And Kate is Scottish. My main character is Scottish, and I mean, at best, I sound like a California surfer dude. So I did not have the accents that I needed to pull off that material.
David, I've got to stop you there because I feel like it would be almost negligent if we didn't at least give the viewers a short example of your Scottish accent.
Oh my God, no way, man. See, the thing is I don't want to butcher the accent and then just get people pissed.
Come on, man. You brought it up. You better deliver now.
No, I can't do it. No. I can hear it. I can hear it perfectly in my head. I can't translate it to audio. Sorry.
Did you at least wear a kilt for the event?
I have worn a kilt. We go to Ren Fair. I love Ren Fairs. At Ren Fair one year, one of my father-in-law's fans gave him a Utila kilt. Have you guys heard of those?
I have, yes.
If you have to wear a kilt, they
It's like
are
the
the
cargo
best.
pants of the kilt world.
Oh yeah, you can store like infinite things.
I think I may have to Google this later. Yeah.
Do it.
I think kilts are awesome. More guys should wear them.
If you want to see more junk, I guess.
Have you ever heard of the housekeeping service with the guys in the kilts and their shirts say no peeking across them? I would so hire them.
Oh my god.
I need to get
Say
the number
this
to
though.
that service because I feel like my wife would love it.
She probably would. Speaking of Ren fairs, another author friend of mine who writes dragon books
Uh-huh.
actually uses Ren Fair as another one of her outlets to sell books.
I considered that. I haven't actually researched this extensively, but they're already sort of called for. Like, you know, everybody's taking the spaces.
Waitlist.
The
Yeah.
other concern that I have is it's so dusty. I just feel like my work would just be covered in dust by the end. And me every day. Like, I don't know, have you guys gone to a Ren Fair?
Oh, I love Ren Fair.
At the end of the day, when you like blow your nose, you're blowing out like a pound of dust.
Yeah, that's about right. You gotta remember, I'm in the desert too. So
Yeah, oh,
it's
there you go.
always dry and dust here.
Oh yes. I'm sure you're very familiar with it.
Oh yeah.
I was just going to say, I'd really like it if somebody would tell me a little bit about the new Barnes & Noble deal because I really haven't heard or read much about it. So what kind of info do you have on that?
That just came up recently in the last couple of weeks. From what I understand, Barnes & Noble has their Nook Press publishing platform. So, you know, just how Kindle has the KDP platform, Nook Press is their version of it. And I believe they offer a way to do ebooks, paperback, and I believe they have a hardbound option too. I haven't really explored it much. What they're doing now is they're trying to, I think, entice authors to publish through them. And if an author makes it to, I think it's between 500 and 1,000 sales, different sites have given me different numbers, you'll be eligible for Barnes & Noble to potentially stock you on their shelves. So it's an avenue for self-publishers to hopefully get on the shelves, where before it's been kind of hit or miss dealing with the local CRMs.
Is this going to be have some kind of exclusivity clause like the Kindle Select program?
Now that I don't know. I'm going to say probably not. I think they're probably going to look at the way that Kindle has done things and pulled authors away from them and say, you know, this is probably a bad idea to force people to be exclusive. But I don't think they will count Kindle sales. So your sales have to be directly through Nook in order to qualify. Does that make sense?
Well, that brings up another question I had. Does anyone here use KDP Select exclusively?
Yeah, I do have a few titles in Unlimited right now.
I've got all of mine in there. They say it's supposed to help with your exposure and your sales and everything, but I haven't really seen any kind of benefit from that exclusivity yet. My first book will have been out 2 years in January, and I haven't seen really any benefit from being KDP Select, period.
How about you, Jason? How are your titles doing?
I've always been in KDP Select, and I guess it's more out of, I don't know, I guess it's a lack of effort on my part to really do the research into how to market the other platforms. Amazon is just so darn popular, you know, I mean, if I think of a book, I'm thinking of, okay, I'm going to Amazon to get this book. And I don't know if everyone thinks that way. Obviously not. You know, they do have a huge share of the market. But, you know, everything I've had has been in KDP Select. And I don't feel like I've gotten any extra benefits out of that exclusivity. I just don't know enough about marketing and getting Barnes & Noble to work for me to use it. You know, I've heard from some other author friends that Barnes & Noble was just a pain to work with. And so that's always why I've been a little bit gun shy from them. But hopefully if they're trying to entice more authors to use them, that it'll become a little bit easier to access and to work with.
And this may be what they're trying to do to pull readers back towards them. And it's strange that you say when you want to buy a book, you instantly think of Kindle instead of Barnes & Noble, when historically Barnes & Noble has been the bookseller. Kindle, yes, they are top dog now, but they haven't always been. They've overcome the traditional bookseller to be the top dog. They own the lion's share of the market, and you can't negate yourself from the Kindle platform. I mean, if you choose not to go select, that's one thing, but you have to have a book on Amazon. It hurts your bottom line if you don't. But being on iBooks, being on Nook Press, being through Kobo, being through Sony, those markets seem to be smaller and smaller and smaller. It's almost like if you have traction in one, you just stay there. You don't bother switching gears, because gaining footholds in those other markets, it's like a Herculean task.
It's really strange to me how people view authors, because it's like, on one hand, like, okay, take us, for example, all four of us. We each have our own work that we're trying to promote that we think is like awesome or special and stuff like that. It's really hard to get noticed in the world. And so it's almost as if like you have to be someone before you can be successful in this publishing. Like, even with traditional publishing, you have to now have followers, bring them in, and you have to like already be popular to even have a chance at getting representation, which I think is kind of bullshit. Like, when I was sending out query letters for Onyx, I mean, this was years ago, everybody kept saying, no, this isn't what we're looking for, but find somebody to champion your work. Well, now, since then, I mean, I've paid a lot more attention, and it really feels as though you kind of have to be like semi-famous before, people will even look at you, and it's really tricky. It's like you said, a Herculean task. It's like a fun task in a way, but at the same time, it's like super frustrating. And then you have some very few top tier authors that all of a sudden like shoot into the public light, and then all of a sudden there's respect. All of a sudden, all that effort counts, in the public eye. But until then, you're just sort of like, oh, who's this writer? I've never heard of him. I don't care.
Every book you put out is a gamble. For instance, I've got a series that's like my passion project. I love it. I put my heart and soul into it, but it doesn't do as well as another series that I'm writing. And, I've got to go where the market is. If my readers are asking for one type of story, I have to continue writing that instead of going to a story that I personally connect with. And you have to really connect with your readers. You have to spend 50% of your time is not writing, it's marketing, it's
Absolutely.
readers, it's trying to find new avenues to sell your books, trying to find new ways to rise above the sea of other authors that are constantly putting stuff out. I mean, that figure I quoted earlier of 1,000 books being published a day is true.
Yeah.
That's a day, per day. There are 1,000 new books flooding the market. And how do you, rise above that? How do you get yours into a spotlight?
That's kind of the question.
Are pickier and pickier these days. Like BookBub. How many of you guys have used BookBub?
I've never even heard of that.
I have applied for a BookBub at least 3 times, and each time it got shot down. Every time.
Yeah.
That's what everybody said.
BookBub is huge, but it's huge and it's expensive and it's selective, and it's I guess you would say it's a buyer's market.
What our marketing plan is, or how we anticipate, getting our books in front of new readers.
They're actually looking at it now in Hollywood, even though the first book is not finished.
Wow.
And so it depends a lot on those connections.
That's
that you
awesome.
Yeah, congratulations.
So you feel like getting a book into like celebrity hands is something that could help your books get visibility?
It could possibly. I know it's helped me. Unfortunately, not everyone's going to have the same success, but it has helped me a lot. If you go to the conventions, I know I've heard of some authors like, oh, I'm not going to do conventions because they're a waste of time. And they're really not. You go there to build your brand and to reach new readers and network. And that's mostly what they're about, especially a lot of the bigger cons, like WizardCon, like you've been able to do. I haven't been able to do one yet, but you go there for the network.
I hadn't even considered that as an option, because I know when I've gone to the conventions, it's more about just reaching the readers. But that's an interesting thing to think of, is connecting with other people in TV, Hollywood, that kind of stuff.
Well, it's all related because, ultimately, I think that for myself, I can't speak for you guys, you want to see it. You want to see your work come to life in a visual medium, whether it's a graphic novel, animated series, a TV series, or a film, whenever I'm writing, I see it all play out like a movie in my head. So ultimately, that would be the goal, is to get it translated into a film, a TV show, whatever.
That's actually the goal I had in mind for my Chronicles series. I wanted to see that not necessarily made into a movie, but into a TV series. And I've been trying to explore how to translate the book into a screenplay, which is a totally different medium.
I can definitely see that being a very cool TV series.
I think you could really play out, the depth of the characters and all that in the series style versus, a 3-hour movie.
Yeah, I think Game of Thrones has definitely opened up the world of, let's do series instead of films, because you can take more time to explore your world, to explore your characters, and I think that's fantastic.
And honestly, I hate to derail our topic, but I'm kind of sick of Hollywood rehashing the same old stories. I would like to see them branch out into newer things. I don't want to see any more remakes. I want to see new material.
Well, that's funny. We just saw Ghostbusters today. It's not a disaster. It's actually a lot of fun. But I would rather see original content than remakes.
And with 1,000 books being published today, there is content out there.
Instead of rehashing all these old movies, they should just go find indie authors and use their material. Definitely make for a lot of different things on TV now.
They can probably auction the rights from indie authors way cheaper than traditionally published authors, too.
That's a market in and of itself. Yeah, TV producers are missing out on tons of opportunities.
My marketing plan is I have zero plan whatsoever.
Best
I just write the books and try to love what I'm writing, and I share it with friends and whoever I can run into. But I will be completely honest. I'm not much of a businessman. I love doing it, and I sell enough books every month that my wife lets me keep doing it. Like I said, if I make it too much of a business, I start to lose the enjoyment that I found in it, and I don't want that. I enjoy being an author, and I enjoy writing stories that'll hopefully scare people or maybe make people laugh a little bit. But beyond that, that's really what it is to me. I don't have a 5-year plan or even a 10-year plan. I just want to keep writing stories that people will love.
Fair enough. And David?
I'm going to keep hitting up conventions, and, what they say is, oh, you wrote a book? Write another book. So I've already done that, but I need to get that book out there. So that's my plan, is keep hitting conventions and keep producing stuff.
And that's all we really can do, is just keep producing and keep, doing what we can to reach others.
Right.
For me, the conventions have been an experiment this year. I, up until now, haven't really traveled much. So doing Comic-Con here in Vegas, doing Comic-Con in Phoenix, I'm going to be in California with you, David. And,
I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be so much fun.
That's going to be really cool. And I like the idea of all of us kind of having a big, massive booth together. We can kind of play off each other.
I really love it. I feel like I have we have a squad going.
So that's my goal right now, to reach new readers, because like was said already, Facebook has kind of become white noise. Twitter, the same thing. Using social media has kind of gone beyond what you used to be able to do with it.
Because everybody's on there now, and everybody's talking about their stuff. So it's flooded.
Now I'm also redoing the covers of one of my book series as part of my, I don't know if you can see that or not.
Pull it back a little
bit.
bit.
Part of my marketing plan.
There you go.
Because I was told recently at one of the Comic-Cons that I went to that my cover appeal wasn't there for that series. So I took that feedback, and I'm now going back with my artist and saying, hey, let's add some more life, let's add some more color into this and create some more appeal.
But it's funny, Katie. I actually have a Kindle version of that book with like the original cover.
With the girl in Vegas?
Yes. So when I saw that on Facebook, I was like, yeah, that's much better. Much better.
Yeah. It's got more eye appeal, I think. It draws you in. The colors, too. That was one thing me and my artist discussed as well, is certain colors tend to draw the eye better. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at those cooler tones, those vibrant purples against the blues to help really draw the eye towards it.
Of your guys' work, what is your favorite book that you have done, and just very briefly why?
But I don't know. It's just really hard for me to choose. But if I absolutely had to, I would probably say one of my favorite ones is the newest one that came out like a month and a half ago, Harvested, which is the first book of the Permutation Archive. It was my first into science fiction, and I absolutely adore science fiction. So for me, that was a big step and a big departure from what I usually do. So that for me is my favorite one as of right now.
My favorite, and I've never made any secret of it. My favorite is Dissension. It was such a unique take on fantasy and dystopian worlds, at least in my opinion. You know, I don't like to toot my own horn a lot of times, but I do think that it was something that nobody had ever tried before. It's, you know, a futuristic, post-apocalyptic world, but it's not zombies. It's the rebuild of society, but it's humanity at its worst, and supernatural creatures who are generally top dog in most circumstances are now slaves to humanity and fighting for their freedom. So I thought that that concept was kind of unique, and it was a twist that might resonate with people. And it's been my passion project all through the 6 books that I wrote.
My favorite is going to be Pathosis. It's kind of a cross between a zombie apocalypse, maybe a little bit dystopian, and I don't know. I love it because it's an adventure. That's right. Katie's got a signed copy there. Yeah, you know, it's a really cool adventure, and I had a ton of fun writing it. Yeah, you know, it's a fun read. It's about a 16-year-old girl, and I don't know. She's just a badass character who takes no shit and is trying to get through a changing world.
That's it for our show this week. We hope you guys will come back. Be sure to give us a like if you enjoyed this show. If you have any questions for any of our authors or me or David, be sure to put it in the comments below. And if we can, we'll answer it on another show or respond in the comments as well. Check back with us again. We're hoping to do this on a weekly basis. And look for us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for watching.